Hello there, and welcome to tonight's quiet journey. You are listening to Silent Footsteps, a place where we walk slowly through the pages of history, softly, calmly, letting time itself guide our imagination. Perhaps it is night where you are. Perhaps you are already lying down with your eyes beginning to feel heavy. Or maybe you're sitting somewhere with the world around you quiet at last. Wherever you are listening from, you are welcome here. Tonight, we will drift into the sands of time. We will visit a land that has fascinated travellers, historians and dreamers for thousands of years. A land of deserts and rivers, of stones shaped with unimaginable effort, of secrets written not only in books, but in the silence of the earth itself. We are going to ancient Egypt, but not the Egypt you know from school textbooks. Not just the Egypt of pharaohs, pyramids and golden tombs. Instead, we will walk softly into a question that has echoed in whispers for many years. What if ancient Egypt was far older than we think? What if the pyramids, the monuments, the traces of civilization were not only 400-500 years old, but far, far more ancient? What if the Nile once flowed through a greener, wetter land when the desert was not yet a desert, but a place of rain, rivers, and life? As we begin tonight's calm journey, let your mind rest gently. You do not need to reach an answer. There is no rush and no pressure. Just allow the images, the sounds, the slow footsteps through time to carry you. And if you enjoy calm explorations like this, you're always welcome to return to subscribe to join us again. But for now, there is nothing you need to do. Simply listen and let the sands of time open before you. Close your eyes for a moment and let us step into the desert together. The night is calm. Above you the sky stretches endlessly, filled with stars that shine with a brightness rarely seen in modern times. There is no electric glow here, no sound of engines or crowded streets, only the soft whisper of the wind carrying grains of sand across the wide open land. You are standing on the Giza Plateau. It is silent now, but in your imagination it is alive. To your left, the Great Nile winds its way through the earth, a ribbon of silver under the moonlight. The water moves gently, reflecting stars on its surface, as if the heavens have bent down to meet the earth. You can almost hear the quiet lapping of water against the banks, where reeds sway softly. The air is cool. Though the desert sun is fierce in the day, the night brings relief. The sand beneath your feet holds the memory of warmth, but it is no longer harsh. You take a step, and the grain shifts slightly, crunching ever so faintly under your weight. And there, ahead of you, rise the pyramids. Massive, silent, unmoving. Their edges sharp against the starlit horizon. These are not simply piles of stone, they are monuments of effort, of patience, of endurance. Their presence commands stillness. They do not shout. They whisper of time. Imagine for a moment the workers of long ago. In the stillness you can almost hear the echoes of chisels tapping against limestone, the low rumble of wooden sleds being pulled across the sand, the soft voices of men speaking to one another as they strain together under the same task. The desert air carries the smell of dust and stone. Nearby, small oil lamps flicker, giving just enough light for the late hours of work. You picture baskets of bread and jars of water, waiting to give strength to tired hands. Step deeper into the scene. The stars above seem endless. The Milky Way arcs across the sky like a river of light, a reminder that long before us, these same stars were seen by the same eyes. Every stone placed, every tool lifted, happened under this sky. You walk slowly around the base of the Great Pyramid. Its stones are massive, some taller than you, some heavier than a dozen men together could lift. You touch one in your imagination, feeling its rough surface cooled by the night air. How long has it stood here? How many storms has it faced? How many sunsets has it watched, casting long shadows across the desert? And then you wonder, was the desert always like this? The sands shift, and in your mind's eye the land begins to change. The air grows wetter, the sky heavy with clouds. Rain begins to fall, softly at first, then steadily, soaking into the ground. The desert is no longer desert. It is green, alive, filled with rivers and lakes that stretch far across the horizon. Could this have been Egypt long before the Egypt we know? Could these stones have been shaped not only under the burning sun, but also under the rains of another age? You take a deep breath. The night is calm again. The desert stretches wide, silent, infinite. The pyramids stand before you, timeless, patient, as if waiting for us to ask the questions hidden in their silence. For now, simply let the image rest in your mind. The cool sand beneath your feet, the endless stars above, and the great stone pyramids rising quietly against the horizon, keepers of secrets older than time. Now that we have set the scene beneath the stars of the desert, let us take a slow step into history itself. What do we truly know about ancient Egypt? Not in guesses or whispers, but in the pages of archaeology, in the stones, and in the records that scholars have studied for more than 2 centuries. According to mainstream history, the civilization of ancient Egypt began over 5,000 years ago. Around the year 3100 BCE, a ruler we now call Narmer, or sometimes Menes, is said to have united the lands of Upper and Lower Egypt. From that moment, dynasties began, families of rulers who passed down power from one generation to the next. But the pyramids, those colossal monuments on the Giza Plateau, belong to a very specific time. Historians tell us that they were built during the Old Kingdom more than 4,500 years ago, in the 4th dynasty. The most famous of these rulers was Khufu, known in Greek as Cheops. It is under his reign around 260 BCE that the Great Pyramid is said to have been built. Nearby, his son Khafra is credited with the second pyramid, and perhaps the Great Sphinx, while Menkaure, the grandson, built the third, smaller pyramid beside them. This is the accepted story. It is neat. It is structured. It is written in textbooks and carved into museums across the world. But what does this story look like if we step inside it? Close your eyes again. Imagine the Giza Plateau not as a silent monument, but as a place alive with the rhythm of building. Tens of thousands of workers are said to have been involved, not slaves, as once believed, but organised labourers, ordinary Egyptians, farmers who gave their time during the flood season when the Nile covered their fields and farming paused. Archaeologists have found the remains of workers' villages, small houses made of mud brick, bakeries filled with ancient ovens, and even the bones of cattle that were eaten to feed these builders. Picture the scene. Rows of mud brick homes, smoke rising gently from cooking fires. The smell of bread baking, coarse and hearty, made from emmer wheat. Children playing in the dusty streets while their parents carried tools of wood, copper, and rope. There are sounds everywhere. Chisels striking stone, sledges creaking as blocks are hauled, voices calling out to keep rhythm. Tools were simple yet effective. Copper chisels for softer limestone, harder dolerite pounding stones for shaping granite, brought from faraway quarries in Aswan hundreds of kilometres to the south. Sledges pulled over tracks of wood, lubricated at times with water to ease the heavy burden. And ramps, long earthen ramps built to drag blocks higher and higher as the pyramid rose step by step. The logistics were extraordinary. Each stone weighed as much as 2 or 3 tons. Some granite blocks used in the inner chambers were far heavier, up to 70 tons. And yet they were moved, lifted, and placed with such precision that even today a thin blade cannot slip between them. Day by day the pyramid grew taller. Stone upon stone, layer upon layer. The workers lived nearby, supported by an organised system that brought food, water and materials. The Nile was the lifeline, carrying loads of stone on boats, docking at harbours that once existed near the plateau. When the sun set, the land grew quiet again. The tools rested, the fires dimmed, and the great structure, incomplete but rising, stood under the same stars you imagined earlier. To the people of that time, these monuments were not mysteries. They were achievements, signs of order, strength and continuity. A pyramid was not just a tomb for a ruler. It was a symbol of power, a bridge between the earth and the sky, a mark that this civilization had carved itself into the very landscape. And Egypt was more than pyramids. Along the Nile, towns flourished. Farmers grew wheat, barley and flax. Craftsmen shaped pottery, jewellery and linen. Boats travelled up and down the river, carrying not only goods but also stories. connecting north and south, desert and delta. This was a land of rhythm, the rhythm of the Nile's flood and retreat, the rhythm of planting and harvest, the rhythm of birth, labour and rest. Every year, when the Nile rose and covered the land, the people turned from farming to other tasks. Some joined the great building projects, giving their strength to raise stones that would outlive them. Others worked in workshops, shaping copper tools, weaving linen, baking bread. The pyramids we see today are the survivors of this rhythm. They are the last standing giants of a time when kings commanded vast resources and thousands of people worked together with one vision. And yet, as strong as this story is, as much evidence as we have from archaeology and history, there are questions. Some stones show patterns that suggest erosion by water, not just by desert winds. The Sphinx, weathered and scarred, raises debates even among scholars. The alignment of pyramids to the stars suggests a precision that goes beyond a mere chance. The official history tells us these monuments are about 4,500 years old. But sometimes, when we look closely at the details, it feels as if the stones are whispering something older. The mainstream timeline is firm, and yet there are cracks in the certainty. And this brings us closer to the heart of our journey. The question that waits just ahead, like a shadow on the desert horizon. What if ancient Egypt was far older than we think? We have walked through the accepted story. We have stepped into the villages of workers, touched the stones of the pyramids, and listened to the steady rhythm of Egypt's old kingdom. But now, let us pause. Let us sit in the silence of the desert night, with the pyramids standing before us, and let us allow one gentle question to rise, like a whisper on the wind. What if ancient Egypt is far older than we think? The textbooks tell us the pyramids are 400-500 years old, but what if those stones carry memories not only of the old kingdom, but of a time much deeper in the past? Look at the great Sphinx. Its body lies long and low, carved from the bedrock of the plateau. Its face, though eroded, still gazes forward with timeless patience. When geologists examine the walls of its enclosure, some see patterns that suggest not merely the wearing of sand and wind, but the work of heavy rainfall. But rainfall in the Sahara, rainfall that could carve such patterns, has not touched this land in thousands upon thousands of years. So the question grows stronger. Could the Sphinx, and perhaps the pyramids beside it, have been built not just 4,500 years ago, but during a time when the desert was not yet desert? A time when the skies were heavy with clouds, when rain fell across this plateau, when rivers carved valleys that today lie dry. Let us imagine, you stand once again before the Great Pyramid, but now the air is not dry, it is humid, rich, heavy with moisture. The sky above is not endless and clear, but filled with grey clouds. Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance, the sand beneath your feet is damp with recent rain. And all around the land is alive with plants, rivers and grasslands. This was the Sahara of the past. Not always barren, but once a place of lakes and rivers. Scientists have found fossils of fish, of crocodiles, of hippos, signs that water once flowed where today there is only endless sand. Could it be that Egypt's monuments were first shaped in that forgotten age, not just in the time of Khufu and Khafra, but long before, in an age of rains, long before recorded history? The stones themselves carry questions. The granite inside the Great Pyramid, brought from Aswan, was lifted and placed with a precision that amazes even modern engineers. The alignment of the pyramids to the stars, almost perfectly matching the belt of Orion, suggests planning and knowledge that reached far beyond simple trial and error. But what if this knowledge was not born suddenly in the Old Kingdom? What if it was the survival of something older, something passed down through generations from a civilization lost to the floods of time? Pause for a moment, not to accept or reject, but simply to let the question settle. Stones do not speak, and yet they hold silence in a way that feels alive. Some researchers argue that the erosion of the Sphinx shows it must have been carved more than 7,000 years ago, perhaps even 10,000 years ago, when heavy rains last swept across this land. Mainstream historians disagree, holding firm to the Old Kingdom dates. But still, the possibility lingers. What if the pyramids too belong to that deeper past? What if the Nile once nourished a civilization that flourished long before pharaohs wore crowns, long before the first hieroglyph was written, long before Egypt as we know it even began? Imagine that for a moment. Imagine a civilization so old that its memory has been buried beneath the sands. Imagine workers shaping stone not under the burning sun of the desert, but under skies filled with rain, with rivers at their side. The Sahara itself tells a story. Satellite images reveal ancient riverbeds, now dry, stretching across thousands of kilometres. There are traces of lakes so vast they could have supported entire regions of people, animals, and crops. In that greener Sahara, human communities thrived. They left behind rock art, carvings of animals that no longer live here, giraffes, elephants, even cattle grazing on grass. If life flourished here once, is it truly impossible that monumental building began here earlier than we believe? Could the pyramids, the Sphinx, and other monuments be the surviving fragments of a civilization washed away by the slow hand of climate change? What if history is deeper than we think? But let us be gentle with this thought. We are not here to prove nor to claim, we are here simply to wonder. Imagine the desert you see today as only a thin layer, covering countless forgotten chapters. Beneath every dune there may be ruins of villages. Beneath every stone there may be traces of older lives. The desert hides more than it reveals, and the pyramids, those giants of stone, may not be simply monuments of the old kingdom. They may be bridges, connecting the Egypt we know to an Egypt we can only imagine. Perhaps the truth is simple. Perhaps the pyramids are indeed 4,500 years old, and the marks we see are only the scars of time. But perhaps they are also older. Perhaps they belong to an Egypt of rain, an Egypt of green fields, an Egypt forgotten not because it was small, but because it was so far in the past that only the stones remain. So tonight, as we rest in this calm journey, let us hold both truths gently, the Egypt of history and the Egypt of possibility. Let us ask one more time, quietly, softly, as the stars turn above us. What if ancient Egypt was far older than we think? Let us leave the question of time for a moment. The stones will remain where they are, silent, patient, eternal. Now let us step away from the pyramids and into the lives of the people themselves. Because Egypt was not only monuments of stone, it was a living, breathing land filled with families, farmers, craftsmen and travellers. Close your eyes and walk with me. The first light of dawn rises over the Nile. The sky glows softly, painted with shades of gold and pale blue. The river reflects the light, shimmering as birds lift into the air. On the banks, farmers are already awake. They carry baskets and wooden tools ready to work the fertile soil. The Nile has recently flooded, leaving behind dark, rich earth that waits for seed. You hear the splash of water as cattle walk into the shallows, pulling wooden ploughs across the fields. The soil is soft, moist, ready for planting. Farmers bend low, scattering seeds of barley and wheat. Others tend to flax, which will later be woven into linen. The air smells of damp earth, fresh and alive. Children run barefoot along the banks, laughing, their voices carrying lightly across the water. Nearby, women fill clay jars with river water, balancing them gracefully on their shoulders. This is the heartbeat of Egypt, the Nile, rising and retreating, feeding life into the desert. Walk with me now, away from the fields, into a village. The homes are small, built of mud brick, simple but strong. Some have flat roofs where families sleep during the hot nights of summer under the stars. In the streets you smell the warmth of bread baking in clay ovens. Step closer. You see women grinding grain on stone querns, their rhythmic movements steady and patient. The flour is coarse but nourishing. Soon it will be baked into round loaves, golden on the outside, soft on the inside. Children chase each other through the alleys, carrying small toys made of wood and clay. A dog barks playfully as they run. The sound of a goat bleating echoes from a nearby courtyard. Craftsmen work in the shade. A potter shapes clay on a simple wheel, his hands wet, steady. The vessel spins slowly, taking form as water drips gently onto the earth below. A carpenter smooths a piece of wood, shaping it into a box. In another corner, a weaver ties threads across a wooden loom. the soft sound of fibres stretching filling the air. The village is alive, not with noise, but with the steady hum of daily life. Now, let us walk together to the marketplace. The air grows busier, filled with voices calling, footsteps echoing, and the low sound of wooden carts rolling across the ground. Merchants have laid out their goods, baskets of grain, jars of honey, bundles of onions and garlic. Dates and figs glisten in the sunlight, their sweetness attracting children who linger nearby. Fresh fish caught from the Nile lie on woven mats, their silver scales reflecting the light. You walk slowly between the stalls, breathing in the mix of scents: fresh bread, herbs, dried fish, and the earthy smell of clay jars filled with beer brewed from barley. Artisans display their work: necklaces of polished stones, small wooden boxes smooth and carefully carved, rolls of linen light and soft stacked neatly for trade. You hear bargaining, calm, patient, respectful, a farmer offering onions for bread, a fisherman trading his catch for a small jug of oil. Children dart between the stalls, laughing. A musician plays a simple flute, its notes rising gently into the air. The marketplace is not only for trade, it is where news travels, where neighbours meet, where life gathers in one place. As the sun sets, the day grows cooler. We now step into a larger city, perhaps Memphis, perhaps Thebes. The streets are wider here, filled with the steps of traders, officials, and workers returning home. Torches are being lit, their flames flickering against mud brick walls. The smell of food fills the air: bread, roasted meat, and lentil stew. You hear the crackle of firewood, the clatter of clay pots, the bubbling of water as meals are prepared. In courtyards, families gather. Children sit cross-legged, listening to elders share stories of past generations. Laughter drifts from one home to another. The streets are alive, but in a gentle way, soft with the rhythm of ordinary life. Inside the homes, oil lamps glow, their small flames cast dancing shadows on the walls. Simple wooden furniture, reed mats on the floor, and jars of water lined neatly in the corner. The rooms are modest but filled with care. The night deepens. On the rooftops, families lay out mats and blankets, ready to sleep under the stars. The cool air brushes gently across their faces. The Nile flows quietly nearby, carrying the moonlight across its surface. And now, pause. Look around you once more. The village streets, the bustling marketplace, the cool river, the glowing oil lamps, the laughter of children, the strength of farmers, the patience of craftsmen. This, not only the monuments, was Egypt. This was the life that beat behind the pyramids, the heartbeat that gave them meaning. Civilizations are not built by stone alone. They are built by people, by families who woke with the sunrise, who worked, who shared meals, who dreamed, who loved, and who left their footprints in the sand. And perhaps their lives stretched farther back in time than we know. Perhaps their stories began not only in 3000 BCE, but in ages long before, when the land was green, when the rains fell, when Egypt itself was only beginning to take shape. For now, as you imagine their world, let it flow gently into your mind like a dream. The sound of the Nile at night, the glow of firelight in a village home, the quiet steps of workers walking home under the stars. This is the Egypt of daily life, soft, human, alive, and eternal. We have walked through the daily life of ancient Egypt. We have seen the fields, the marketplaces, the homes, and the families. We have felt the silence of the pyramids and the whispers of the Sphinx. Now, let us sit quietly and turn our attention to the question itself. Why do some believe Egypt may be older than we think? And why do others hold firmly to the traditional story? According to Egyptologists, the pyramids of Giza were built around 2600 BCE, during the reign of Khufu, followed by his son Khafra and grandson Menkaure. This timeline is supported by hieroglyphic inscriptions. Some quarry marks inside the Great Pyramid link directly to Khufu's name. Archaeological remains, workers' villages, tools and artifacts dated to the Old Kingdom. Cultural continuity. Monuments before and after Giza show an evolution of style and technique. To mainstream historians, this is strong evidence. They see no need to push the timeline further back. The Old Kingdom, with its centralized power and organized workforce, seems perfectly capable of producing these monuments. For them, the pyramids are not mysteries, but extraordinary achievements of human engineering, remarkable, but within the reach of their time. But not all scholars agree. Some geologists have pointed to the Sphinx as a key piece of evidence. The body of the Sphinx is deeply eroded, and the walls of its enclosure show patterns that look like they were shaped by flowing water. One researcher, Robert Schoch, suggested that this erosion could only have been caused by heavy rainfall, not merely by wind and sand. But Egypt has not seen such heavy rain since long before 2600 BCE, perhaps not since 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, when the Sahara was green. If Schoch's theory is correct, the Sphinx might predate the pyramids by thousands of years. Perhaps it was carved in a wetter age, long before the pharaohs we know from textbooks. This idea is controversial. Most Egyptologists reject it, arguing that the erosion can still be explained by other means. But the question lingers, what if the Sphinx is truly older? And if it is, does that mean the pyramids too might have older foundations than we think? Archaeologists studying the Sahara have discovered that it was once alive with rivers, lakes, and grasslands. Around 9,000 to 6,000 years ago, this land supported herds of animals, and people left behind rock art showing giraffes, elephants, and cattle. If Egypt was green in those times, could it have been home to an earlier, forgotten civilization? Could monuments have been begun in that era and later reused, rebuilt, or reshaped by the pharaohs of the Old Kingdom? It is not impossible. The land itself has changed. The Nile has shifted its course many times. Whole settlements may have been buried by sand waiting quietly beneath the desert. Over the years, several ideas have been suggested. Some argue that the pyramids were built in stages, perhaps beginning earlier than Khufu, with later rulers adding and modifying them. Others suggest that older structures may have stood on the plateau before the pyramids we see today. A few researchers even point to astronomical alignments, noting that the pyramids seem to reflect the stars of Orion's belt, but not as they appear today. Instead, the alignment fits better with how the stars looked around 10,500 BCE. Mainstream Egyptology does not accept these alternative dates, but they remain points of fascination for many. It is important to move gently here. On one hand, archaeology gives us strong evidence for the Old Kingdom timeline. On the other hand, geology, astronomy, and climate studies open doors to possibilities of greater age. Perhaps both perspectives hold part of the truth. Perhaps the Old Kingdom pharaohs did build the pyramids we see today, but perhaps they built on foundations, ideas, or traditions much older than their own time. History is rarely simple. Civilizations rise, fall, and sometimes leave traces that are later claimed by those who come after. Could Egypt's Old Kingdom have inherited knowledge from a forgotten age? Could its monuments be both younger and older at the same time, shaped in one era but rooted in another? For now, the stones remain silent. The pyramids stand in their place, unmoving, as debates continue. Archaeologists, geologists, astronomers, and historians all bring their voices to the discussion. But the truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in between. Maybe the pyramids are exactly as history teaches us. Magnificent works of the Old Kingdom. Maybe they are older, carrying whispers of a civilization long lost. Or maybe they are both. Monuments of one age resting on the memory of another. As you sit quietly under the desert sky, with the stars turning above and the sand stretching endlessly around you, remember this. Theories may differ, evidence may be debated, but the pyramids remain. They do not move, they do not speak, they do not argue. They simply endure, and in their silence they remind us that time is vast, and that even the strongest knowledge we hold is still a small fragment of a much greater whole. We have walked through history. We have stood beneath the stars of the desert. We have listened to the whispers of stone, and we have asked the question, what if ancient Egypt was far older than we think? Now let us rest with the thought. Not rushing, not searching for answers, but simply reflecting. Civilizations rise. They build, they flourish, they leave their marks on the earth. And then, slowly they fade. Once, Egypt was filled with voices, with footsteps, with laughter and life. Streets were busy, markets were full, the river carried endless boats. But now, when we stand at Giza, there is silence. The stones remain, but the people have gone, The pyramids are not only monuments to kings, they are reminders of the passing of time. What was once new and alive is now ancient and still. What was once filled with purpose is now only memory. And this is not Egypt alone. It is the story of all civilizations, from Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, from forgotten kingdoms in Africa to ancient cities in the Americas. They rose, they built, they dreamed, and then they faded into the quiet. The desert teaches us this truth. Nothing remains forever, except the Creator. When you stand before the pyramids, there is a feeling that cannot be explained in words. It is not only their size, their weight, their precision, it is their patience. For thousands of years, storms have come and gone, rulers have risen and fallen, empires have passed by, but the pyramids remain, watching silently. And yet even they are not eternal. Their edges crumble, their stones shift, their surfaces wear away. One day, even they will return to the earth from which they were carved. This is the way of time. Everything created fades, everything human passes. And perhaps this is their greatest lesson. Not how they were built, not when they were built, but simply that nothing in this world lasts forever. So as you rest tonight, let your heart be calm. The pyramids may be younger or they may be older, but either way they remind us of effort, of endurance, of human hands that work together for something greater than themselves. And they remind us too of humility, that even the mightiest rulers, even the grandest monuments, even the strongest civilizations, all return to silence. In their quiet way, the stones speak. Life is brief, time is vast, and only what is beyond time remains. Take a slow breath. Let the desert night surround you. The stars turn above, patient and calm. The sand stretches endlessly, soft and silent. The pyramids stand unmoving, timeless, steady. In this stillness, you do not need to hold answers. You do not need to solve the mystery. It is enough to simply rest with the wonder. Civilizations rise and fall, the desert keeps secrets, the stones keep silence, and you may let your thoughts grow quiet, like the sands at night. And so, our quiet journey comes to an end. We have walked across the sands of time. We have looked at the pyramids glowing softly in the night. We have listened to history, to mystery, and to silence, and now it is time to rest. As your eyes grow heavier, let the world outside slip further away. The questions, the thoughts, the weight of the day, let them all settle gently like grains of sand falling into stillness. You have wandered through Egypt tonight, not in footsteps, but in imagination. You have stood beneath the stars, you have heard the echoes of workers' tools, you have wondered about time itself. But now there is no need to wonder, no need to search, no need to hold on, only rest, only calm, only peace. The pyramids remind us that civilizations rise and fall, that nothing lasts forever, that only the Creator remains, eternal and beyond time. And in remembering this, we find comfort. Because just as great empires pass, so too do worries, struggles, and restless thoughts. All things change, all things fade, and what remains is peace. So tonight, let yourself rest in that peace. The desert is quiet, the stars are calm, and you are safe. Thank you for joining me on this gentle journey. If your eyes are heavy, let them close now. If your mind is wandering, let it drift into dreams. And if you would like to return again, to walk once more through quiet histories and silent mysteries, you are always welcome. There is no rush, no pressure, only the calm of knowing that another journey awaits, whenever you are ready. So for now, let the night carry you. Let the sands of time soften beneath you. Let the pyramids stand watch, patient and still, as you drift into sleep. Until next time, may your nights be calm, your dreams gentle, and your heart at peace. Good night.